and welcome to this week's episode of the Popcorn Wind Down. I'm Eddie.
And I'm Tammy.
Thank you for joining us this week, Pop Stars. This episode is sponsored by Fight Club Self Defense. We teach you how to defend yourself when someone thinks you're the prey. Show them you're really the predator. For more information on our extensive training and services, look us up at selfdefenseclub.org. And remember, what happens in the Fight Club stays in the Fight Club. Timmy, do you know self-defense?
I know how to kick them where it hurts.
And run.
And run. And I think, like, if I was really in danger and I did that and I had to run, I don't run. But I feel like I can really get some speed in.
Like the
if I was running for my life.
Like the adrenaline would kick in.
Yes. I'd be like Jason Bourne.
I keep saying I want to take self-defense classes, so I think I actually will. And besides, I love the movie Fight Club. Just random thoughts for the day to get us started. But speaking of kicking ass, this week we spent some time in the presence of royalty with the Woman King, starring Viola Davis as Nancisca, general of the Agojie, and I pronounced it so perfectly yesterday, an elite all-female warrior unit tasked with protecting the king and the Dahomey tribe. In the Woman King, Nancisca finds that not all threats to the Dahomey and their future are external. Some of them actually come from within. So, Tammy, what did you think of the Woman King? Did it kick ass for the ancestors, or was it more colonizing bullshit?
It kick ass for the ancestors. No, it was amazing. It was amazing. There were so many themes and elements to the Woman King sisterhood. It showed dedication. It showed strength. The fact that the elite squad basically was the women and not the men, even though they did have the men's squad as well, the men regime or however we call it, that the women were in charge, that they were the ones that were sent when things need to get done. All right. If you want something done, you send a woman to get the job.
Thank you. Why send a woman? Why send a man when you can send a woman? We get it done just as effectively and quickly and better.
Yes, I feel you on that. But yeah, it was really, really good from beginning to end. Like, and I missed the beginning, the very, very beginning part. I don't know if I missed anything significant, but I really, really enjoyed it. Like, there was so many reactions to different scenes in that movie, which I'm sure we'll get to. But it was definitely a phenomenal movie, and Viola Davis is an absolute queen. What about you, Eddie?
I agree. It did the ancestors proud. It was one of those movies where I'm not gonna say that others shouldn't watch it, because I do want them to watch it, because for some I realize that this will be the only sense of history that they get of our history. It is loosely based on a true story. The Agojie, the kingdom of Dahomey, they were all very real. And then certain things have been dramatized, but that part is true. And I love that I love that part about it. But it was truly a movie for us, by us, about us, and I love that. And more specifically, when I say us, Black women. And I think that's what even made it hit home a little bit more for me, was just showing that we've always had that strength, that we've always been able to take kingdoms and put them on our back and carry them and support them. So I can't say more about that. But Viola, and I agree with everything you said, the sisterhood, all the different themes. It was so much to talk on, to speak on. And Viola Davis is a national treasure. She was phenomenal as Nancisca. And I think we've talked about it before. Whether you necessarily love the movie that she's been in or love the movie as a whole, I always walk away from a movie that she's in loving her performance in that movie, because she can take any role and she embodies that character and you forget she's that type of actress where you forget it's Viola Davis playing a role, and you just think of her as that character. And that's how she was with Nancisca. And her portfolio is so broad that she's played all these different types of roles, and she's just amazing. Like, so I can't speak enough. And we've talked about it before. I think that I've seen so far my second performance worthy of Oscar conversation. The first one was Austin Butler in Elvis, and the second one is Viola Davis and what she did in this role. Um, she deserves, at this point, even though it's early in the game, she deserves to be in that conversation. Um, so I am all for that. Um, but yeah, it's just it's a lot. So where do you want to start? I'm gonna turn it over to you. Where do you want to start?
You direct this, Eddie. Go for it.
Oh, speaking of directors, shout out to Gina Prince Bythewood who did her thing in this. She's always a phenomenal director
Is
as
she the same
well.
one that did Love and Basketball or no?
Yeah, Love and Basketball.
Okay.
The movie that we love on Netflix. I can't think of it right now, with Charlize Theron last year.
Oh, Old
Or
Guard, the Old Guard,
Oh
yeah.
Guard, yeah. So she is a phenomenal director, and so I think she did a great job. Cinematography, just everything was on point. The costume designing, the from the choreography, not just the fight choreography, but actually the dancing and the chanting. They all meant something. They all had meaning behind them, and it just kind of took me back and made me proud, and just channeling the ancestors. So, yeah. But so, what did you think, since we're on the cast? What did you think about the cast? I love the cast. I thought it was perfectly cast.
No, the cast was really really good. I have to say my absolute favorite is the woman who shares my name or my government name. Playing Izogi. Loved the character. Loved the character. Like it hit me so hard at the end. But I think like just everybody played their role so well. Um I would probably say if we want to look at like what the weakest link was in acting, it would probably be the men because the women just played their roles so well, but maybe like Malik or what was the other? What was Santo? Was it? But overall, I think everybody played their roles very, very well. It's very believable the role that they had in. It wasn't like I was just seeing somebody act in a role, but I do think that the acting definitely played into how great this movie ended up becoming.
Yeah. I liked her Captain America. I can't wait to see where she fits into the Captain America universe. But Ishogi, you know me and names horrible. She was great. I loved her too. I also liked Amenza, but Isogi was pretty good. Um, and Naui. There are times when I want to beat Naui upside her head, but
She was her mother's daughter, though. She was like when we guessed that whole thing, it was like she is her mother's daughter. Like the pushing back and everything. Like there is no way Nanesca could have got to where she is without challenging authority, without challenging what she was told to do, which we saw at the end when she didn't follow the orders of the king. So I felt like in the end it did prove like she was just like her and probably was just like her from when she was young.
yeah, she was good. Um, I I overall, what did you think about the story? I think Maria Bello um did a great job. She was producer. She also wrote the script. Crow wrote the script, and you find that it's kind of like, as a white woman, I'm trying to figure out how to say it. As a white woman, I think she did a good job in writing this story. What about you?
Oh, I guess so. I mean, you're the script writer, Eddie, so you can kind of like talk a little bit more on that. I just
Well,
thought it was just a good storyline overall. I if I had not known that if I had not recognized her name, I wouldn't have known that it was a white woman who wrote this. I don't think that necessarily plays a good script writer is a good script writer,
that
and
is true.
yeah, so I don't think necessarily if you can write about the experiences and you have the people around you who can educate you on the experiences of people from different cultures and different heritage, then you're going to be a great script writer because you're going to listen to the experiences and that is going to play into how you write the script. And so if we're talking along those lines, then yes, she did a great job. But I am sure the reason why she did a great job is because she surrounded herself with people who could make sure that she told the story um, in a, I guess, Black centered way or an African centered way than a Eurocentric way. So yeah, if that is kind of go along with the question you were asking, then yes, I do think that she did a phenomenal job on doing that. Because it wasn't like I don't think necessarily they sugarcoated as much as some people thought they would. I had a couple friends who said they refused to go see The Woman King because it was well, they talked about the history of the actual tribe and the fact that they were part of the slave trade, that they did sell other Africans. And my friend was like, I'm not gonna go see a movie about people who were selling their own people. And so I had to educate them and say that wasn't their people though. Like you got to recognize just because they're from Africa's a continent, not a country. And having the mindset that Africa is a country is you coming into this idea that they were selling their own people. Now, of course, they sold that idea in the movie slowly, with Nancisca saying, selling other Africans and stopping, the slave trade and everything like that. But the actual historical fact is that they were a major part of the slave trade. They did trade other Africans, but it wasn't their people, it was their captors. That's how slavery started. Um, my bad. I'm sorry. I'm going on a
No,
historical.
no. I
I'm
mean,
going on a historical thing. But
I
I
think you're
think a lot
doing
of
great.
times,
Like,
huh?
I think you're doing great, and you answered the question, and you're threading some, you're threading it together. Some of where I wanted to go with this conversation, because as great as the movie was, I don't think you can talk about it without talking about some of the historical accuracies and inaccuracies, maybe in some of the historical facts surrounding it. And initially, you did answer the question that I was found myself trying to ask, and what I meant by you're right about a great scriptwriter is a great scriptwriter regardless of their race or gender or what have you. But I was taking it more from the Eurocentric and the whitewashing, and I think that she did a phenomenal job as a white woman not to do that. It did have the Afro. It did seem like if you didn't know, you would not have thought, especially given the producers. Viola Davis is a producer. Gina Prince Bythewood, you would have thought that this was done entirely by a black. The behind the scenes were majority black, is what I'm saying. So I think she did a good job in tackling that, and also, and not necessarily skirting around the issue about, and that's one of the controversies, and that's one of the things that others love to throw up in our face. Well, you were sold by your own people, and that is true. Africans did participate in the slave trade, and some knew the horrors that awaited once they got here, and some didn't. And once some found out about the horrors that were awaiting, even their captors, when they got here, they tried to back out of the slave trade, and some were more successful than others in doing so. So it's a very complicated issue. No one is denying that. And I think this movie does, even though it scratches the surface, I think it does a good job of acknowledging that. And like I say, that is a part of our history. You have to deal with that as coming from the motherland, especially all those people who want to portray Africa as this great place and that we were all kings and queens. And
Oh
if
my
we would
God,
have
I hate
stayed
it.
in Africa, we
Yeah,
would still all be kings and queens, which is not necessarily true. Um,
not true at
it,
all.
and so I think it did a good job of pointing that out. And the Dahomey, they were a part of that. So yeah, but in like you said, um, slavery slavery has always existed, even from biblical times. You can go back and you can see that. But
Mhm.
what happened here in America, 18th, 16th, what 17th, 18th century slavery, that changed the face of what it was, of what it. So and how the trade happened. But yeah,
I think it's
um,
more. Sorry.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I think it's more. We kind of that's. I feel that sometimes that idea is more of an American centric viewpoint of it. I think that Europeans' addition into the slave trade is what ultimately changed, because no matter where slaves were sent and no matter which country controlled that, um, they all changed the aspect of slavery. People were captured. If you see in the movie, The Woman King, where they were given the option, when you were captured, you were given the option of joining the military. That was something that actually that is historically accurate. That when you were captured, you could actually work your way out of being a slave. You could buy your way out of being a slave, and
Yeah,
sometimes you could marry your way out of being a slave. And so like people like my some of my friends who I have conversations with about this, like they don't acknowledge that aspect of it, right? They don't acknowledge that the Portugal was one of the worst slavers in the world. Yes, England had the biggest slave empire, but slaves that went to Brazil had
oh
a shorter,
shit.
yeah, like had a shorter lifespan. They had worse working conditions than people in America did. They worked those people to the death. They barely made it to 30 years old. Like historical fact, like that shows that. So I think that when we involve Europeans, the French, the Dutch, the Spanish, the Portuguese, all of them coming together, they completely, as a continent, change the concept of slavery, um, which ultimately we kind of look at it from America's perspective because you know that is where we are. But they just changed it completely overall from what Africans were. And I agree with you that when Africans started to see what slavery was in those places, that's when they tried to back out of the slave trade, when they realized the harshness of slavery, which was very different from how they viewed slavery in their own tribes and in their own areas. But
Yeah,
once again, Africans means you're from the continent of Africa. It's
yeah,
not the same. It's literally like I am not Mexican just because I am from North America. Mexicans are not American just because, or not, from the United States just because they're from North America. So it's a continent. And I think a lot of people who are so against this movie because of the historical facts of the movie, you need to keep that in mind. You can't be pro, Afro and Afrocentric and not take that into account on it wasn't just this tribe, but that is part of our African history as well.
yeah. Um, what was I gonna say? Oh, yeah. The point Santo was from Brazil, and when I saw that, I'm like, oh shit, because it was it. What you meant, the part that you missed was basically just a little bit of the history scrolling. It talked about the Dahomey tribe, and it was set in 1853, which at the time, technically, legally, the slave trade, meaning that the triangular trade had ceased to exist to the United States, but we know that's not true. We know they still imported slaves even after that time frame. Um, but so when they were going to Brazil, I'm like, oh fuck, because they didn't end slavery in Brazil to 1908. And they had them on the sugar plantations, which was like hell on earth. But So I yeah, we have a very, very complicated history, and for a long time in a lot of cultures, slavery was more or less akin to indentured servitude. There are some people who've always been brutal um, with their slaves or their captors, and worked them to the death. But that was not necessarily the norm. A lot of times, you had options in the sense that there was a way out. It wasn't a lifetime of indentured servitude, and your children weren't necessarily, it wasn't a generational thing. So yeah. But speaking of Santo, he was played by Hero Tippin Fines or Hero Fines Tippin. Um, and I thought I actually liked seeing him in that role. It was something different than those horrible After We Collide movies.
Oh, how dare you!
Um, Yeah, those movies, they're I don't know what they are. But I like seeing that the Fiennes acting tradition has carried on because the Fiennes brothers are some great actors. Um, and so it was nice seeing him in a role where you could actually see that he does have some acting chops, I guess is what I'm trying to say. He was a bastard and he deserved everything he got.
Damn.
Um, and you kind of get it. It's like, and I love like one of those senses of realism is that even though Malik could pass on the surface, um, it, the people who knew the truth, because Santo knew the truth of his heritage, and you saw that in several instances. The first one when they were getting off the boat and they were going to Dahomey, which is presently the Dahomey tribe would be located in present day Benin in Africa. But when they were going to see the kingdom of Dahomey, which is where Malik's mom was from, it was at that point that he told them, well, when they ask, you're the son of a printer and nothing more, and indicating that, hey, I know who you are, I know where you come from. And then you could also see it like when they were on their way, Santo was being basically carried in a hammock, and Malik was still made to walk behind them. And then at one point he even threatened to like sell him. So it was just like wow. But I liked Malik. I almost wish that there was a way for him and Naui to be together. Part of me wanted them to be in game, but I understood why they weren't, and I'm kind of glad that they weren't. What about you? Did you like that storyline?
It was just there. It really was. Like, I was just hoping that she wouldn't fall for the okey doke, because no matter what he said, yeah, you can pass because the person who ultimately raises you, you can display yourself because your father is white. It'd
And
be
your father,
different
I'm
if
sorry.
his mother was white. It'd been different if his mother was white.
And also not only that, his father chose to claim him
Exactly.
because mostly even if his mom was white, um you know his father didn't have to claim him. His father could have let him be because that one drop rule. um so that was there. And also ultimately, I the other part of me, the romantic in me, was like, oh, but the other part of me that was glad, because technically I thought this is where you were going to go with that. At the end of the day, he owned her. Like,
Well, okay.
what?
I so he paid for her, but I don't think it was necessarily a ownership. I felt like that was him paying for her freedom,
Yeah,
because
like,
she was gonna end up somewhere. So I don't think he necessarily, like, I look at it as in, not necessarily that he owned her. It was him paying for her freedom because that was the only way that she could ultimately be free.
but
Because if
where
he had taken her back to England, then it's not like he would have, made her work for him or something like that. Like it would have been an equal partnership, kind of like what he saw the situation he saw his mother in. I do think that it would have been a little bit of a naive viewpoint, because you're half black and your wife would have been black. It's very different than you being full white and your wife being black. Very, very different experience would have been had in England, just based on those color dynamics. But yeah, yeah. I mean, he was
Yeah.
cute. He was adorable. But yeah, no, go back to business.
Yeah, but and that's what I'm saying. He owned her, and in order to get her out of there, he would have had to claim ownership. We damn sure know that they weren't going back to America. They weren't going back to Brazil. He booked them passage to England. But still, at the end of the day, especially if he would have done the passing thing, she still he still owned her at the end of the day. Now that's not how he looked at it. And when she brought that up, but that was the reality of the situation. So, but I get what you're saying. He did it more or less to buy her freedom, so she would not end up in a worse situation. Um, One of the people that we have not talked about is the king, John Boyega. I thought he looked good in this role. I thought he looked particularly handsome as the king, and he surprised us because at first, I don't know about you, but you kind of get the sense that he was just going to be another dumb playboy king who was hiding behind the Agojie and the power that they secured for him and protected for him. But then you realize that no, he wasn't that naive or that dumb, and there was more to him. He thought with more than just his little head, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I particularly love the parts, the scenes with him and Santo. The first one where he told Santo, "When you're in my house, you speak to me in my language." Like I don't know who the fuck you think you are, but we're not equals. Um, and then when Santo more or less kind of threatened him, and he was like, well, if he goes, well, when Santo found out or discovered that he was trying to get out of the slave trade, he was trying to make it seem like, well, if you do that, you won't have our protection anymore. And when he just kind of flipped the script on Santo, and he's like, well, if I'm not protected, you're no longer protected, so who's in more trouble here? um so I thought that was I just thought that was kind of masterful. What about you?
I do not find John Boyega to be attractive, but I'll be honest. I think other people could have played the role of the king. Like, I don't think this was his role. Like, when I look at Nancisca or Nawi or Izogi, like, I see like that is their role. That's their character. I didn't necessarily see that with John Boyega. I do think that he's a great actor. I think that he is a really, really great actor. Um, but did he own the role for me? I don't agree. I don't think that he necessarily owned the role for me. Now, the king, the character of the king, I agree with you. Like, you would think that he was going to be, one of those where you'd be like, oh my God, can they just kill him so that we can actually get some real progress going on? And then he showed himself to actually be smarter than what he appeared to be in the very beginning. So that was a great character development in a way, on showing us he wasn't as weak as you would think he is, just because he happened to surround himself by his wives, and listen to his wives' counsel at the same time that he listened to his generals. But yeah, so I think I love the character of the king. I think the character of the king was really great as well.
No, I mean, I think he was attractive. I think he's an attractive man. Now I agree with you in the sense that he did a great job in playing the king, but was this just the role that was meant for him? I don't know. I love the character as the king. There probably could have been other people who played the king just as well, but so no, do I think I'm not saying it's an Oscar worthy role or he's in that Oscar conversation, but I think he did a good job, and I particularly like the character. Now, one speaking of wives, the one that I did not, the one as soon as I became Woman King, this bitch would have had to go. Shit, I might have found a way to take her out before then, and that's his first wifey, wifey number one. What's her name? Ashante, Asante, whatever.
Shante.
Shante, yeah, she would have found herself. She would have been one of those heads I was toting around as presents. She was straight up treacherous. Um, I, like if she would have ever come in contact or had a moment with the Oyo King, I could see her betraying um them to get rid of Nancisca to embolden herself. Like that's just how treacherous I could imagine her being. Like you think she wasn't that bad because she never really had that opportunity, but just from her, like I would have loved to seen the conversation between her and Santo and how that went down, because she's the one who told Santo that the king was trying to get out of the slave trade and what he was trying to do and the plans, and then made it seem like tried to make it seem like the king was weak because he was taking advice from Agojie, from Nancisca, who was also a woman. And it's like not many people outside of the continent understood just how powerful and fearful um, these women were. So I would have loved to seen that conversation. Like that is a scene I wish we could have seen in the movie. Just to show just how treacherous she really was. So what about you? Did you like wifey number one?
I did. She played her role really well. She was a betrayer. She wanted power, and Niska said that, like you are all about power. Now I do think that the power that she wanted is she wanted to rule beside the king. I don't think necessarily that she wanted to take the king out. I think that she wanted to take Nanesca out because she had the king's ear more than Shante did. And so you take out everybody else because you saw that none of the other wives were a threat to her. So the only person who was a threat to her and to the power that she wanted and the fact that she just wanted to be fully beside the king was Nanesca. And so that was ultimately her enemy. She does not succeed, which is hilarious when Nanesca comes back. And I'm just like, oh, shoot, like, is he going to kick her out? Like, how is this going to go? And he still made her woman king, even though his wife was in the process of the ceremony to make herself woman king. He was just like, hold on, chick. we gonna switch this up. We're gonna make it Nanesca again. I was like, oh dang, dude. Just kill her spirit.
Yeah, because I don't think he expected I don't think he expected her to come. I don't think he expected her to live. But then I don't think even if she did live, I don't think he thought that she would be brave enough to come back.
He
Um,
underestimated her.
yeah. And so I was just like, okay, but yeah. And then I mean, Sam- she was a good ally in the sense that, but she couldn't be trusted, and he couldn't even trust her. And I think that's part of it. Not so much the rivalry between her and Asiska, but the fact that he kept saying, "Hey, first of all, you're telling my business to a stranger." So you went outside of the ranks and you told a stranger, not only a stranger, but you told the white man about the inner workings of what's going on here. Secondly, I've told you to stop talking about our business to those gossiping hens. Even though they're wives, they didn't have the rank as the first wives. They were basically, to me, I saw them as concubines, just women who were added in the harem, you know? So to me that proved right there that she couldn't be trusted, that she wasn't necessarily trustworthy. And I agree with you. I don't think necessarily that she wanted to take him out, but she wanted the power. And she was willing to do whatever it took or whatever she thought it would take to get it. And part of getting power and loyalty is knowing when to keep your mouth shut. Like what happens in Dahomey stays in Dahomey. So I think that was her first mistake, is when she told one of her biggest mistakes, I'll say rather, was when she went talking to Santo. Because after that, you could tell, like, he saw the pettiness between her and Nancisca, but after the conversation he had with Santo, when he realized she was just talking, and talking and running at the mouth, that's when his attitude towards her really started to change. Like when he just seemed annoyed. So I don't know if she was going to take him out, but it seemed like he was going to take her out at one point, or he wanted to. But yeah. Um. So anything else? Uh, you got anything else? Hello.
Hello.
I was gonna say, you got anything else to add?
So I think that Nanesca, Nawi, Izogi, Amenza, like I love the of course the sisterhood, you know, you had friends, even if they tried to, I guess, discourage it in the beginning. I like the training. So how they train them, I was just like, that's how you build strength. You have to be dedicated. Everybody had a story on how they got to the tribe, how they got to Dahomey, and you heard the story. Everybody's like, hey, we all struggled. But I love the fact of like ultimately they came together. It was really sad that, now we ended up losing, the one her one friend, who was basically her competition from the jump. How, she ended up losing her, and just how they came together, like the fight scenes, I thought was just absolutely phenomenal and showing the strength of the women, of the tribe, just how powerful they were, just how amazing and feared they were. Like when they were walking down the street and you couldn't look up at them, like you did not look at them as they were walking down the street. And then the little boy who had his hand over his face, but he was peeking through his fingers. And then Izogi like came up to him and like just stood there staring at him, kind of scared him. And then she like smiled at him and just kept it moving. So even though they were like the most feared, there was kindness to them. Like their strength, it's not like they lost their humanity because of their strength. As they gained their strength, even if that's how they pushed, training and everything like that, ultimately they actually didn't lose their humanity because they fought for their tribe through and through. And it wasn't like a tribe full of women, because I think in Africa there also has been a tribe full of women who kind of kicked all the men out and everything, but it wasn't like that. It was just, they were just the strongest and the most feared, and you just knew that. But you knew that every time that they fought for the tribe, they fought for the community. I just found it to be absolutely phenomenal. Like the acting, I just think the connection and the friendship was really, really strong as well. I would suggest for anybody to go watch The Woman King, even if you may not necessarily like the historical inaccuracies, or you may not like the history of it, of the tribe and of the Woman King and what they stood for and what they did in order to survive in the end. I just think it was an absolutely phenomenal movie.
Yeah. One of the things, speaking of relationships, I love that once we found out the truth, that Naui was Nancisca's long lost daughter, not necessarily lost in the sense that they were separated on purpose. Naui, I mean, Nancisca gave her up for adoption for many reasons. She was a product of rape. And she, at that time, she was already a part of the Agojie, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and so they didn't have children, and yeah, because she said when she came back, she'd been captured once, but when she came back, she hid the pregnancy. So, but she had, she had made it so that if she was ever reunited, or she would just know who her daughter was. And I love the realism in that it wasn't this long lost reunion story, as far as, oh, now we're together, everything is going to be okay. I love how they showed the complexity of that relationship, her from when Nancisca figured it out initially. She didn't go back and tell her. She didn't talk to her about it right away. And then the way that she kind of told her or revealed that she was her daughter, it was almost kind of cruel. It wasn't this warm and fuzzy moment. It was a sort of like cruelty to it, almost like a lesson to be learned. from it, you know. So there, the where they got to in the end, how their relationship evolved, it was really kind of, I love that, and I love how it was the realism involved in it. Like now we having to deal with the fact that she was a product of rape, and the trauma, and when she, you know, when she felt like she had to apologize and just dealing, you know, and then them kind of coming together. But even at the end, you got a sense that they still had work to do. So I love that aspect of it.
What was your
Um,
favorite scene?
in the movie, gosh,
Mhm.
I would probably say it was like maybe the fight scenes. Probably the last fight scene, like that whole, the all of it combined. When they went, when she went to go get the Agojie back. You know, that entire sequence was just incredible to me. I loved it all. Um, what about you?
Um, it's two. So of course, you know, I'll continue to say it. The movie was absolutely phenomenal. But I think one scene was when Izogi came back for Nawi and she ended up getting shot.
Hmm.
And that whole scene where Nawi just like broke, like like she just broke, where she couldn't even think of like running away, she couldn't even think of like leaving, she just was just so heartbroken because I felt like that was kind of like not necessarily her mom but like an aunt to her, you know,
Hmm.
like they connected from the very very beginning. So that was definitely a powerful scene. And then I think another powerful scene is when Nancisca heard that Izogi was dead. And when she said, "We're gonna burn this shit to the ground," I
Oh
said, "You
yeah,
so right." I
because
said, "Burn everything, kill them all, kill all the colonizers."
I remember because we saw the movie together, and I turned to you and I said, "Burn this motherfucker down."
Yeah,
Before she even said that, I was just like, "Burn this motherfucker down."
definitely.
Um,
So, yeah, that those two were my absolute favorite. Oh wait, I have one more. I'm sorry. And then also Nanesca when she fought Oba, and when he stabbed her in the arm. He stabbed her in the arm, and she used that without pulling the knife out. She used it to stab him and then dragged it up. I said the pain that she must have been in doing that, and still like she was focused. She was focused on killing this man. And just that scene where she shoved the knife and then dragged it up to make sure that he died. Um, I just thought that was such a significant scene as well.
yeah. But I think I was focused also on the themes. Like one of the themes that I noticed that we in that went through something that we've kind of talked about here lately is the sacrifices that it showed, that
Mm-hmm.
it's powerful and as fearsome as these women were, the sacrifices that we as women have always made, continue to make, and will probably still have to make in the future, um, of career, family versus career versus duty. And I remember when, I think it was a powerful scene when they were taking the captors, and she was explaining that hey, you're not going to have children, you can't get married. You know, we don't have relationships or lasting relationships. This is it. This, your whole life is dedicated. It's a ride or die type proposition, basically. You live for us, you die for us. That your life is your way. But you know, and there's more to it than that because, like you said, it's the sisterhood, it's the family. And once you get into it, you think, oh, what kind of hell is this? But once you really begin to see what it's like, you see that it's not that bad, you know. But it's a sacrifice that you have to make. And so, and they gave the women an option. She's like, look, if this life ain't for you, if you're not about this, then you can go. And they left. What, it was about three or four of them that chose to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And then this one, she goes, but I don't know if I want this. And as though, and now he said, then why did you choose this? She goes, because I don't have anything else. So some people didn't leave because they didn't have any other choices. But and then I remember Nally asking very clearly, but why does it have to be this way for us? Because the men, they're married. The male warriors, the male regime, they're married, they have children. Why can't we? And so I'm just like, yes, so that was one of those things that is just prevalent to me. Especially since we've been having those conversations the last couple of weeks. It's just the sacrifices. Um, and it shows that brunt has always fallen on women, that decision of what what we can do versus what we can't do, or the expectations of, well, if you do this, if you have a family, then you can't do this and this. So I thought that was just really kind of something poignant to put in there, in the movies. So that was the thing that I really picked up on. But yeah, it was really really phenomenal. Okay, so anything else?
No.
All right, so let's rate this baby. What are you giving The Woman King? How many popcorns did it earn from you?
Um, y'all, I feel like because Eddie kind of bumped into me when I got my popcorn and I dropped a few kernels, I'm going to give The Woman King a 4.5 popcorns. All right. So it's not a full bucket, but it did a pretty good job of fulfilling my hunger.
I like that. I like that.
What about you?
Um, I agree. I gave it 4.5, and I sometimes I end up changing them as we go through. Just I either lower it or I raise it, just as we talk about. Like, well, But this one, it got a solid 4.5 all the way through. But I did a little something extra. I purposely poured a little bit off the top so I could add in some milk duds, so it still had flavor.
That was good. That was a good one, Eddie.
So it still has flavor, but it didn't start off as a full bucket, but it
You
was
got to put a little
delicious.
chocolate in your life, boo.
Yeah, yeah, it was delicious. It was a four. It's a definite solid 4.5, and I highly recommend it. Um, and like I said, it was fairly historically accurate from the standpoint of it was based on a true story. One thing I did mention is Maria Bello did consult a professor from Princeton, I want to say, who helped with the historical accuracies. And of course, it is a dramatization. So, but yeah, I would say get over it and go see the movie. It is really, really phenomenal and well worth it. It also reigns supreme, the number one movie in the country. So it's great, and of course Viola Davis does her damn thing as always. Um, Never puts forth a bad performance. Always, always, always. And it's not one of those movies where she has to carry it. Like
No,
she
she had some pretty good. She ain't have to carry that movie on her back. Her back not
no,
hurt.
yeah, she had some help. Damn great movie. Everybody from the like I said, director, cinematography, writer, producers, they all did the damn thing, and it is well worth it. I highly, highly recommend this movie. All right. Well, I guess that does it for this week's episode of the Popcorn Wind Down. Please be sure to listen, like, follow, and comment wherever you stream your favorite podcast. You can also keep up to date on the latest in entertainment and pop culture news, as well as other amazing kernels of pop culture goodness at the popcornwinddown.com. That's it. That's the plug.
Pop,
Pop it
pop,
up,
pop,
pop,
pop, pop,
pop,
pop, pop, pop, pop.
pop. Thank you as always, and be sure to join us next week when we discuss Fate the Winx season 2. I'm excited. Have you watched it yet?
I am on like the fifth episode,
Oh, okay.
so I'm like
You're
in the
almost
middle of it right now.
yeah, you're almost done. All right. Well, I can't wait to see what you think of season 2. Until the next time, pop stars, I'm Eddie.
And I'm Tammy. Bye.
Peace.